Hello there, Loving Without Boundaries community. This is Kitty Shambliss here, the founder of our beautiful mission here at Loving Without Boundaries, where we are helping people live their most authentic lives, free from jealousy and insecurity, shame and guilt, and the pain of infidelity or recovering from that type of trauma. And we are honored to be here, B and I, who is a part of the team. And we have a really important topic today on vulnerability. Before we jump into that, I just want to, if you are new to our community, say thank you to you for joining. Welcome. We are glad that you are here. We do our best to really create a safe environment for you to learn, to grow, to ask questions. We take that very seriously, your trust in us. And we really enjoy creating that space for you, because I know when I was starting out, I felt very alone and that I didn't have anyone to turn to or to talk to, which is partly what led me to start to create this community about almost exactly a decade ago. And we've been thriving and growing ever since. And it is an absolute honor to serve you. And I am here with B. And B, it's a delight to see you today. And we have a great topic on how vulnerability is important and why that can show up in relationships in very positive ways. I think a lot of times, just to get us started, there can be a belief that vulnerability is a weakness, which in fact it's really a strength. It's a sign of courage and an act of bravery to show up and be vulnerable, whether we're being vulnerable expressing our tender feelings or talking about our needs. But I'd love to just have you start us off just on this important topic, and we'll share some of our own stories along the way as we have this conversation.
Hello, everyone. It's exciting to be here again, having this really important conversation today about vulnerability. And Kitty, these were my thoughts exactly, that one of the most common limiting beliefs that we encounter is that vulnerability is a weakness. So this topic is really close to my heart, because I've seen it many times in my life and in the life of others as well. What a huge difference does it make if we are either able to practice vulnerability or don't able to practice vulnerability. And I'm so glad that you started us off with beliefs around vulnerability, because I can't emphasize enough that the mindset, what our beliefs are, what the stories we tell ourselves about vulnerability will determine whether we're able to practice it or not. And I want to invite all of you watching this to turn a little bit inward and ask yourself, what type of beliefs, what are my specific beliefs when it comes to vulnerability? The most common ones that we see, the one that you mentioned, Kitty, that vulnerability is a weakness. Vulnerability leads to rejection and pain. Vulnerability means the loss of control. And if I show up vulnerably, then makes me undeserving of love. The repercussions of these particular beliefs can be completely detrimental to the quality of our lives and the quality of our relationships. It's essential that we learn to practice vulnerability, because this is a bridge to deeper connections with other human beings. And this is a gateway for a healthier self-image, a healthier self-esteem, that we acknowledge our very own gentle feelings, our needs and desires that we might feel ashamed about, and embrace those feelings, because the transformation starts with that if we're able to first acknowledge these things in ourselves. Sadly, if we're not able to do that, if we keep repeating these limiting beliefs, a few of those I mentioned, for example, that vulnerability is a weakness, or it's going to lead to rejection. This can show up on a behavioral level in our relationships. We might end up with avoidant and defensive behaviors, because if we're not vulnerable, that means that we possibly suppress something in ourselves, our fears, our concerns, our perceived weaknesses and imperfections. And we just want to defend ourselves from possible harm. So we may behave in a withdrawal way, or show up reactive in our relationship. For example, judging, blaming, and control. We often talk about judgment, for example, that in most cases, this is this has an inverse relationship with our needs. So if we judge ourselves, our own beautiful feelings or our perceived imperfections, we likely project it outward to others as well, and we might have a difficulty to accept those types of vulnerabilities in others as well. Or if we're not facing our fears and concerns, and if we don't lean into self-awareness first and then creating shifts in ourselves, then we might judge others, and with that, abdicating the responsibility of doing our own work. Because in a way, even if it's a destructive way of meeting our needs, pointing the finger and blaming and judging in the moment might feel easier than to stand naked in front of someone else and open up about the possible fears that we feel, including jealousy and insecurity, which will mean if we keep avoiding, if we keep suppressing, that nothing gets changed. Our needs gonna get unmet, and we set ourselves up for a lot of emotional pain.
Thank you for sharing all that, B, and so eloquently, and really putting a lens for us to think about this through. And one thing that's really come up for me in my own life is to vulnerably share here is that some people do know my story, that I went through a midlife crisis in my life. And part of it was because I was dealing with depression. There was a lot of losses that I was experiencing, and I didn't feel comfortable being vulnerable, talking about my sadness, my losses with a lot of people in my life, because I also didn't want to burden them. I didn't want to burden them with what was going on with me. And I knew it wasn't their job necessarily, but when I did that, I created a lot of disconnection. People didn't know what was going on with me, and they started to not know who I was anymore. Partly because I didn't know who I was anymore. I started to lose myself and all of that. And I've often heard that depression can be anger turned inwards. And so that was partly what I was feeling, was some resentment, some anger about things that happened to me in my life. I was angry about the death of my father. I was angry about the situation that I was left with my mother at the time. I was angry that we found out that we were infertile, and deeply sad about that, my husband and I didn't know how to handle it. And so part of that vulnerability was raising my hand and reaching out for help. And it took me a while to do that, because first I was confused what was even happening. I didn't realize that I was dealing with depression. And then eventually I realized I needed help. And it took me working with a couple different therapists to find one that worked. But I really do believe in finding the right professional for the job. And I'll be honest with you, when I was going through therapy, it helped a little. And the way it helped me the most was validating and acknowledging all of the losses that I had, when other people in my life just didn't really understand. They were like, why have you been sad for years now? We don't get it, And I started to just worry that that was my lot in life. Like I wasn't ever going to find a solution. And I did, even at least one stage in my life, get to the point where I had suicidal thoughts at least once. And I remember that moment very vividly. And that was the moment that I realized that I needed help, because I didn't want to do that to my husband. I didn't want to do that to my loved ones. And so I reached out for help, and I vulnerably raised my hand, and I was in therapy, I want to say, for maybe a year and a half. And just that validation was very important. And I also learned about the power of meditation. And once I just got to a place where I was a little bit better off, that's when I was able to start to help myself again, get back to being the resilient and resource person that I knew that I was. And that's when things started to shift quite quickly. But I am very grateful for the therapist that I was working with at the time, holding that space for me. And I really do believe that there is no shame and no guilt in saying, hey, I need some help, and then finding the right person to help you through that. So it was able to move me through that time so that I could reinvent myself, which has led me to talking to everyone here today. And I'm going to honor you, B, because that's also how we met, right? Like by me kind of saying, hey, I went through some really hard stuff, and it was partly related to living my most authentic life and figuring out what that looks like. And that led me to becoming a coach, and then you eventually finding my book and my work. And so I honor that moment. Like sometimes when we go through some really tough things, we can look back and say, what was the gift in that? And the gift in that for me was I completely changed careers, reinvented my life, and I love what I do now, and get to have people in my life and on my team such as yourself. So I just wanted to share that story vulnerably as an act of illustrating what being vulnerable can mean and what it looks like. So I'll give the mic back to you, B.
Well, thank you so much, Kiri, for sharing your story with us. I believe this was the first time that I heard more details about what went through, and I really honor your vulnerability here. And I like to honor your vulnerability with mine. I believe that your story is relatable to me. At least I don't know if others who are watching find pieces of it relatable. There was a time in my life about 15 years ago when I hit a really intense low, deep depression that was also diagnosed medically. And ended up in a dark room for a year, completely isolating myself from the rest of humanity. And I was suicidal as well. I nearly got hospitalized like an inpatient. And the turning point for me was when I actually went to the interview into the hospital before me being admitted. And that's when I said to myself that, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a way out of this, no matter what it takes. And I just said that, thank you. I'm going to solve this for myself. It's definitely been a journey, and it took me several years to understand what went really on. It was nothing more actual. And I really want to highlight how far our beliefs can push us into destroying our quality of our life, that I had an underlying belief that me struggling, me reaching out for help, me raising my hand, that I have certain fears. I struggle with some anxiety. I'm not sure that I can make that particular career change that I wanted to do, because I had the belief that that's a sign of weakness. And if I show any type of weakness, that makes me undeserving of love and I deserve to die. That was the underlying belief. Still to this day, it deeply touches me how far our limiting beliefs can take us, that I nearly took my own life because of this. And because of other underlying beliefs also connected me not showing vulnerable and not reaching out for help in time. It led me to take 4 different medications for 6 years, for anxiety, for OCD, for panic attacks, for manic highs as well, because I didn't lean into that vulnerable space inside me, admitting to myself where I needed to grow. And I felt incredibly ashamed to the degree that I was ready to kill myself to reach out for help. So similarly to you, Kiri, it was a painful point in my life, but I'm so incredibly grateful that I went through that experience, because that made me who I am today. And this is why it's so important for me to raise awareness. What mindset shifts can change once we step into that space, identifying our limiting beliefs and creating empowerment in place of that. Because look at me, now I'm here. I never felt better in my life, never felt more balanced, and speaking vulnerably about that life experience that I feel completely content with. So yeah, absolutely, transformation can happen, just as it happened for you, Kiri.
Yeah.
And that helped me become more accepting, more understanding, more loving, not only toward myself, but for other people as well. And it equipped me with tools that I can help others as well. So yeah, incredible gifts can come out of these experiences.
Thank you for your vulnerable share, B. And I didn't know some of that as well. So it's an honor and just so beautiful to get to continue to know you better and to know some of the trials and the tribulations that you've been through. And I love how, because of all the work that you've done, through working together and on this beautiful journey of coaching, you've gotten to a place where you can on a dime just say, hey, but I am so glad that that happened, because it made me into the person I am. It helped me to build resilience. Sometimes we have to go down to the depths of our darkness before we can really see the beauty of our light. So that's what I would love to just maybe start to share here, is that we can go through these really dark moments of our lives, yet there's always a gift there in terms of recognizing that you can overcome those moments. And a lot of the time it can be by raising your hand, reaching your hand out, and taking somebody else's hand, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a coach, whether that's a friend, whether that's an accountability buddy. But finding help is so incredibly important. And there are ways to learn how to cultivate self-awareness and get the help that you need to figure out, how do I uncover my limiting beliefs and then turn those around into empowering beliefs and create those shifts, those breakthroughs in my life. And very often we're not able to do that on our own, and there is no shame in that. One example I like to say is, if you're inside a jar, you can't read the label that's on the outside of the jar. So sometimes working with a third party can help you to see the things that you're not able to see, your blind spots, and help shine a light on what those are. Because otherwise, if they remain in your unconscious, you can't sort those, you can't fix those. And sometimes having somebody ask you the right questions and really guide you on a transformational journey, so that you can also learn how to ask yourself the right questions, can be absolutely life-changing. Anything you'd like to share there, B?
Yes, I would love to build on what you shared, and also another brief story, if I may share, around relationships and attachment styles. I'm pretty sure that many of you are aware certain attachment styles or your own attachment styles. What came up for me is that, again, me not showing up vulnerably and having a limiting belief that I showed my fears, I showed my anxieties, I showed my struggles in a relationship. I'm undeserving of love, and who would want me? I'm a despicable human being and I don't deserve to be loved. That led me down the road unconsciously to act out dismissive, avoidant attachment styles for a decade. I just couldn't form deep connections because I was so afraid of being found out. And with the help of the tools that I learned over the years, and with true commitment through my transformation, I can say today that one of the most amazing, most beautiful places for me is showing up vulnerably in front of someone else in any type of relationship. But when it comes to romantic relationships, it's one of the most amazing places for me. It can create a magical experience. So it's completely possible to break those patterns that led us to keep up the avoidant and defensive behaviors. And there's absolutely a way of getting out of the loneliness, isolation. There's something wrong with me. I'm angry. I'm acting based on overpowering fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. I just can't emphasize enough how important vulnerability is when we show up authentically with other people, and they pick up on that. They are empowered by that as well. So we enter in a really positive feedback loop, and then we create the magic together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. And I think that this is so important too when we talk about breaking old patterns. It can also be like old patterns that are unhealthy in the ways we communicate, where we might be self-sabotaging ourselves, breaking down our own self-respect or self-esteem, and also unintentionally damaging our relationships, where instead, by learning how to be vulnerable, speaking to your tender emotions with compassion and care, and learning how to speak in a way where you're honoring your own feelings and owning them as your own, and deciphering what your needs are that are underneath everything that we're doing, and sharing those in ways where you don't feel, the other person doesn't feel attacked or criticized, so that they get triggered to show up defensively. Because when we do that, we get on what we call the field of battle. We don't have to do that. We can learn how to speak in ways where you get on the field of understanding, where you learn to speak in vulnerable and courageous ways, because this does take practice. And do that in a way where you're creating trust, you're creating deep connection and intimacy. And we don't get there without that bridge of vulnerability. So it's such an important topic, B. And I just want to thank you for bringing that up. So if this is resonating with you, we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to type in the comments. We'd love to see if this topic is of interest, if you got some nuggets from this. And if you are yourself looking to work through this on your own, to learn how to be more vulnerable, to release some of the struggles, the roller coaster of emotions or self-sabotage that can show up in relationships, especially when we're talking about coloring outside the lines of heteronormative monogamy, where courage and bravery is really needed, and learning how to move away from any scarcity mindset and show up with so that you can be your most authentic self. Looking for help with that, I invite you to book a call at lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's how B and I met after first she had found my book and resonated with my teachings that way, and the way I want to be here to serve and help other beautiful human beings like yourselves live your most authentic life. And when you do that, you just find a spot on my calendar. There'll be a very brief form for you to fill out just to set us up for success on that call, so that I'm prepared and have some context for a conversation, and then just show up. There'll be a short little thank you video for you to watch. It's only 4 minutes long, to also help set you up for success there. And then we're just going to have an honest, beautiful conversation where I'm going to see, where are you at? Do I believe I can help you? And if so, we'll outline a plan on how to do that. If not, that's okay. And I will do my best to steer you in the best direction for you. And we can create transformation if you are ready to have that in your life, if you are ready to learn these beautiful tools that you get to keep for the rest of your life. And I love something you said earlier, B, I wanted to highlight, which is that conditioning. There's the 3 C's of, first, there's the commitment, making the commitment that, yes, I am ready to have positive change and transformation in my life. And I'm ready to do everything that I can in my power to create that. And then potentially working with somebody to guide you so that you can get to a place where you get the tools and then you're consistently applying them. And that's the key, like that word. It's about creating new habits and then conditioning the new beliefs, the more empowering beliefs, calling forth the best version of you. That's what can really change anything. So if that's the kind of positive shift you're looking for in your life and in your relationships, I invite you to go to that link, lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call with myself. And you get to work with a team if you decide to go on that journey. It's a very different way than just what I found to be sometimes very slow progress. If you're working just on one-on-one bi-monthly therapy, it can be helpful, especially in the right situation, but it can also be slow, or it might not be the right fit. The way this process is built, it's here to compress time, to give you everything that you need while you're conditioning and building these new tools and these new habits. Anything, B, that you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned compressing time, because this was the one thing that I really noticed when I going through the work with you very first. And I really want to say that in the past, I used to have that hope that I can just wave a magic wand and quickly my problems are going to disappear. And I look for tools like YouTube videos, or just kept reading books, always hunting for the best, next and shiny tool. But after a while, you realize that no matter if I have those amazing tools available, let it be like a fantastic communication tool, when my mindset is not aligned, where it's completely overrun by limiting beliefs that I don't deserve love, that something's wrong with me, that I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to be rejected, then I either won't lean into those tools, and really bring them into practice, or it's going to be a real struggle. So I said that, you know what, I don't want to struggle. I'm not willing to do this for the rest of my life. Let's punch it and let's compress time. So if this resonates with any of you, that you are just really fed up with struggling, then just reach out to Kitty anytime and have that beautiful conversation with her to see if she can help in any way.
I love what you said there. There's a metaphor I like where it just to your point about if we have limiting beliefs that are holding us back from living our best life and you learn these great tools, well, these tools are like trying to put a new software program on an old system. You know, it doesn't work. It won't install. You know? And it's a great metaphor. You know, you've got to work at the root level to change your belief systems. And often we're not able to do that on our own. And again, there's no shame in that. It's about recognizing where you are and then making that commitment to get the help that you need so that you can start living your best life as soon as possible, not months from now, not years from now, or God forbid, you know, I hate to say it, but I do talk to people who are on the edge. They might be on that suicidal edge or on the brink of divorce or losing their most cherished relationships. And it just doesn't have to be that way if you're ready to make that commitment to yourself and to your future. And that's exactly what we're here to help. So if that's you, feel free to book a call. And either way, we are glad that you are here finding the support that you need in this beautiful community here at Loving Without Boundaries. We are here for you, alongside you, and we are rooting for you every step of the way, wherever you are at on that journey. So with that, B, thank you for your time and this beautiful topic. I really appreciate you and the heart and the love that you bring to everything that you do, and your ability to keep conditioning your growth and your learning says so much about you and also your passion to serve this community. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's my honor.
All right. Well, with that, we will see you soon. And we hope that you are all having a great week, and take care for now. Bye-bye.